of an hour. Rosanna, Bianca, back to you.
All right, thanks so much for that. Well, 7:32, and we're talking about this. Migrants, they continue to arrive right here in New York City. They have been coming on buses directly from Texas under the direction of Governor Greg Abbott. And officials say more buses are scheduled to arrive today.
Well, the influx of asylum seekers is putting an additional strain on shelters. The city's scrambling to provide resources for the thousands of migrants arriving here. And yesterday, the city council held an emergency meeting on what needs to be done. We're going to talk to council member Eric Bottcher. He was at the hearing. He joins us this morning. Nice to have you here, city councilman.
Thanks for having me.
So what do we need to know about these migrants coming to New York and how we're providing services for them?
So in the past few weeks, approximately 4,000 asylum seekers from Central and Southern America have arrived in New York City, many of them on buses sent by Governor Greg Abbott from Texas. And a huge percentage of them have ended up in our shelter system because they've arrived with nothing but the clothes on their backs. In my council district, I represent the west side of Manhattan. We have 2 hotels that have been filled with families seeking shelter. A huge percentage of them are folks from these buses. And we have 1 hotel with 210 families and another hotel with almost 600 families. And in our district, we are going to envelop them with love. We are welcoming them. We're going to have a supply drive. We're going to make sure they're situated in school. It's a heartbreaking situation, and I happen to think that it's a craven political move by Greg Abbott during an election year to curry favor with his people.
Well, let me ask you something. I understand that you're upset about Governor Abbott busing people here, but where were you when President Biden was doing these secret plane drop-offs with, migrants here in the middle of the night with no information to anybody? I don't know who knew what was happening, but this has been going on for now over a year with these clandestine plane drop-offs. How come nobody was talking about that?
It's important to remember that these folks are here legally.
I know, but I'm asking you about the plane drop-offs. Why don't we hear about our local politicians concerned about those plane drop-offs in the middle of the night?
I don't know about the plane drop-offs. What I do know is that this crisis started in my district. We did not have this influx of people into our shelter system until these buses started. That's when this started. I got a phone call about a month ago saying that the shelter system was being flooded with families seeking shelter, and that the next day they needed to rent out an entire hotel to fill with these families.
I mean, and we understand that it puts a burden on your district, on our city, but you have to also take into account of the fact that over 200,000 migrants crossed through the Texas border just in June. So how do cities there deal with it? When we're only dealing with 4,000, they're dealing with over 200,000. What would be the best plan moving forward? Because one state and a couple of their border town cities cannot handle the amount of people that are coming in.
We've needed immigration reform for a very long time, going back decades and decades. And as a country, we've done nothing on fundamental immigration reform. This goes back decades, and I remember during the Bush administration they were trying to get immigration reform. Obama, Biden's trying to get immigration reform, and as a country we need to come together and fix the system, because what's happening now is not how we should be operating as a country.
So you're saying in terms of what's happening right now, like what is not working right now? The fact that they're letting too many people come in too quickly, because we see the burden here on a small level, whether it's your district or whether it's the city, but on a bigger level, what do we need to do? Because it affects every single city, just as, as we're seeing here.
What I see is a humanitarian crisis in Central and South America where people are fleeing for their lives, just like you and I would. If we were in fear for our lives, in fear of our families' lives, you and I would do the exact same thing. Seek a safe place to go. And here in New York, with these migrants who are seeking asylum from dangerous situations, we're going to welcome them and care for them, just like it says on the Statue of Liberty. We can't have it both ways. The Statue of Liberty says, give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses. that's what we need to do.
So let me ask you something, because the shelter system's already stressed. We have people who live here and work here who can't afford housing. What do we do? Like, what is the solution? Because the mayor has talked about, you know, President Biden needs to help us with some federal dollars. So far, we're hearing crickets. What do we do in the meantime?
We need federal dollars, but the fundamental problem with housing in New York is the fact that we have not generated nearly enough housing. Between 2010 and 2020, over 600,000 people moved to New York City. The population of Detroit moved to New York City in that decade. And we only generated a fraction of the new housing units. So the competition for housing for every unit that comes available is so extreme that you will not get a unit of housing unless you have great credit, great income.
Right, of course, it's impossible. Listen, I don't know how you turn back the hand of time on affordable housing in New York. Everything is expensive here. Butter, eggs, milk, you name it. Can't turn it back unless we crash. So
can't turn it back, but going forward, we've got to do better.
Of course we do. While we have you here, can we just talk about monkeypox vaccine before you go? Any chance that we're going to see some more vaccines in our area?
We're going to see some more vaccines, but it's not going to be nearly enough to meet the demand. In my district, I represent the Chelsea Village Hell's Kitchen neighborhoods, and we have so many people who still have not been able to get their first vaccine. We also have a lot of people who got their first and they aren't able to get their second. And we're prioritizing people who haven't got their first, which is the right strategy. But there's tremendous anger at our government for failing so badly on the heels of COVID-19. It's embarrassing. We should all be embarrassed at how badly we failed at this.
2nd Street subway station coming to your area, hopefully within the next 20 years.
Yeah, the 7 train was extended to Hudson Yards. As we all know, they were supposed to build 2 stations, one at 34th and Hudson Yards and one on 41st and 10th. They built the one at 34th, and at the last minute, they scrapped the one at 41st and 10th. We need that station. Build that station now.
City Councilman, we need a lot of things now. We need a lot.
Yeah.
We can do it.
All right, fine. Anyway, nice to meet you in person.
Likewise,
Yes,
my first morning show.
I know,
Thank
nice
you.
to have you
Appreciate
here. You took over Corey Johnson's district.
I did.
You know, when Corey was here, he would dance with To Raining Men and stuff like that. I'm not going to ask you.
Tell me next time, please.
The next time you're on. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your help.
Thanks.
Your time right now, 7:40. The Yankees took on the Mariners last night, and the game went to extra innings and late into the night.
Tina Savasio has details from that tough loss.